Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Work Like a Laker podcast. I'm Carlos Martinez,
And I'm Megan Rickson.
and we're just we're two advisors here in the Career Center at Grand Valley, and this is episode 2 of our podcast. So if you haven't heard the first one, please go back wherever you heard this one. There should be a link connecting you to the last one. I'll leave it at that, but you can subscribe in different platforms. So hopefully by now we're on all the big ones: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all the different good places that you can conveniently listen to us. Today's episode is a follow-up to the first one, in our opinion. So the first one, we had Troy Farley, who's the director of the Career Center. Today we have Jamie Belt. Jamie is a student at Grand Valley who's had some pretty cool internships, and we have a nice little chat about how she got connected with them, what some of her experiences were, and I won't give away too much. We hope you listen to it all and enjoy. Before we jump into the podcast, I do want to share some of the upcoming events that you might be interested in. And by I want to, I mean Megan.
Yeah, he's making me do all the hard, boring work over here. No, this is not boring because it's Career Fair month. So everybody should be really excited. Career Fair is coming up on October 16. If you hear me say October 11 in a couple of our podcasts, I really apologize for that. But right now I'm going to drill October 16 into your brains. But before Career Fair even happens, we have some lead-up events that we want you to know about. So the first is How to Talk to Employers. That's going to be taking place in Kirkhoff on October 2nd. For specific room details, timing, all of that, just know you can always go into Handshake, and that's where all of our events will be listed, and you'll be able to find all the pertinent information there. And then, did you have something, Carlos?
gvsu.edu/handshake.
There we go. Thank you. The important details. And then the second event that we want you to be aware of happening before Career Fair is something we call Suit Up. This takes place at JCPenney, so the department store, and it will be at the Granville Mall. And this event, we did it once last March, and it went really well because they are offering 40% off of all of their professional attire. And I'm talking some really good deals. So they give you that on top of all of their sales prices. I believe I got a pair of pants for under $10 that are work appropriate and would certainly be Career Fair appropriate as well. So you definitely want to come in and check that out. That's going to be on October 7. And again, check out all of our social media channels. You can find us at GVSU Careers on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. So we'll be promoting that event, as well as certainly you can find that in Handshake, as with the rest of our events. So those are a couple of the events to help you get prepared and feel really good about walking into Career Fair. And that's going to be on October 16. Again, just going to keep drilling that into your brain. So with that, we will jump over to our conversation with Jamie, and we hope you enjoy.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for joining us one more time. It's our second conversation, but if we do our job right, this is probably the third episode that you're all listening to, the Career Center podcast. That may or may not be the name when this comes out, but we're just going to run with it right now. We're just kind of going with the flow. I'm Carlos Martinez, an advisor in the Career Center, and I'm here with...
I'm Megan Rickson, also an advisor in the Career Center.
Yeah, and our guest today is a current Grand Valley student, Jamie Belt. Jamie has a pretty cool, interesting story, and she's just wrapped up an internship. So, Jamie, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, maybe major, hometown?
Hi, everyone. Like you said, I'm Jamie Belt. I'm a senior here at Grand Valley, studying human resources and supply chain at the School of Business. This is my third year at GV. I was able to bring in some credits, so I've really enjoyed my experience. I'm from a super small town, Stevensville, Michigan. Most people haven't heard of it, so don't be surprised if you have no idea what I'm talking about.
That by St. Joe?
It is, by St. Joe and Benton Harbor.
I have a friend who went there.
Yep.
Probably much before you, but yes.
So Grand Rapids has also been a cool adjustment, going from really rural and small to kind of a bigger city feel. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed my experience in Grand Valley.
Okay. did I hear wrong? So did you transfer in from somewhere else?
No, so I didn't transfer in from like a CC, so to speak.
Okay.
I transferred in just credits from high school. So like we had really great AP programs and dual enrollment stuff.
That's awesome.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So you just wrapped up an internship with Amway, correct? What were you doing over there?
Yep. So I was back for the second time with Amway this summer working in the procurement department. So procurement is kind of a confusing thing for a lot of people. I didn't know what it was before I landed my gig there. Basically ordering raw materials and all the stuff that goes into your final product. So I was working this summer on reducing some inventory costs, stuff that I actually had just talked about in one of my classes at Grand Valley. So it was a really nice transition. And I was also working on figuring out ways that our administrative professionals at Amway could plan meetings and events a little bit easier around Grand Rapids.
Yeah, we're biased for the Career Center, but we're always, huge proponents of internships. And we know that one of the ways that you were able to connect with Amway originally was through one of our events. So the Career Fair, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, maybe we can take it back a little bit. Well, sure, towards the end, we'll chat a bit about your internships experiences, but how did you first hear about the Career Fair? What were some of your thoughts before you even showed up?
Yeah, so it was my freshman year, technically. And I knew that I was not going to have as many summers to get the experiences that I wanted, because I definitely wanted internships before I graduated. So as a lonely little freshman, I decided to work my way downtown.
Amazing.
I was living in Allendale. I stopped at a Goodwill, picked up the best business clothes that I could find on my budget.
Did you stop on the way?
Yep.
You stopped on the way and got changed
in the bathroom.
At DeVos Place?
100%.
That is amazing.
So I did the whole thing too, where I thought DeVos was the same as like the DeVos we're sitting in right now with the Career Center. So I came here first and was like, where is everyone?
Right.
But I got changed and then figured out where I needed to go, meandered my way over there. I did do a lot of prep work. That was one thing that I'd read online and just seen around GV, that there's, the key to having a successful career fair is coming prepared yourself. So I'd done some research on some of the companies I wanted to talk to. Definitely was prepared to do kind of an elevator pitch. I have two older sisters, to give some advantage, I guess, to give advice on that. But
and they had done similar things in the past and had some advice for you.
Yep.
Good.
So I was able to take that and walk in, and honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I was scared. The whole reason I was there, though, as a freshman, that first career fair especially, because there's two of them throughout the year, was because I wanted to just honestly get it under my belt. Just if I screwed up every conversation, it didn't matter. Great. I was only a freshman. It's just kind of getting over that hump of fear that you have when you first start talking about that kind of stuff.
What do you think that fear comes from? What's the scariest part, at least for you?
I think it's just not knowing how to talk about yourself in a professional manner when you first start. So people, ask you about your strengths, and I think it's really easy to think oh, I don't want to brag, or I don't want to come off too cocky. But there's definitely something to be said about confidence versus cocky, and being willing to just start those conversations with different people means a lot. So so I just started kind of wandering around. I did not create a plan. Hindsight's 2020. It would have been nice to have stopped and looked at all the employers and made a plan of routing. But I just, again, wanted to kind of start seeing what the conversations were like. It's a stocky, it's not the most friendly environment when you first get there. You have to definitely ease into how to handle it. And then I saw Amway and had never heard of Amway, not being from the area.
You hadn't even heard of Amway.
Nope, I had not heard of Amway at all. And so I started a conversation with who ended up being my mentor that summer, actually. And
so cool.
She looked at my resume, which was very bare bones when I went.
Sure.
And she was like, "Are you a sophomore?" And I said, "Nope, I'm a freshman." And she was like, "Oh, I like that." And so she kind of she took my resume, she put it in, one of the piles, whatever, had me fill out my information. And that was honestly where it started. That was the first connection that really started up an interview process for me. So.
Wow. So there's a lot to unpack there, actually. I'm not sure where to begin.
Yeah.
We'll start off by saying that you're a rock star, because I'm even impressed. This is my first time hearing the story also.
Same. Yeah.
And so there's a few key things in there I just want to unpack, because some of the students may be attending their first, career fair ever this semester. Was it the fall or winter fair?
Fall.
So you went right off. Did you go again in the winter?
Yep.
Okay. So for that first fall fair, We do have the DeVos Center downtown,
Mm-hmm.
but for those of you who will probably make the same mistakes that happens every semester, if you do show up to our office downtown, we will have somebody here who will point you in the right direction. But we're actually going to host a fair at the DeVos Convention Center. And you also mentioned that it doesn't seem friendly, and I hear that from a lot of people because it can be very intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're walking into a room with around roughly 230 employers, about 1,000 people at its peak busy at time, and so it's very easy to feel lost. A few tips for those of you who are listening: we will have an Ask Me table, and so we'll have some Career Center folks there ready for you, and they will have the ability to just answer general questions, even if you just want to stop by and say, "Hi, I'm lost."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we loved at the Ask Me table actually to bring students right into the fair with us so that you don't feel, I mean, you mentioned feeling really lonely throughout this process. We want to help as many students as possible avoid that feeling of being all alone wandering through this massive convention center. So please stop by the Ask Me table. That is definitely something we'd love to offer you. We typically have a bunch of people hanging out there who would love to kind of walk you in and say, you know,
Here's where to
here's
start.
Yeah.
a company, go and chat with this person. They're really friendly. Yeah.
I also help a few people every year tie their ties. I don't know about bow ties, but if it's the main regular ties, I got you there. So just look for my name tag, Carlos. I also heard you mention that you prepared your elevator speech. So we can all prepare, but how was it actually executing it for the first time, having to talk to an employer? How did that go for you?
Yeah. So like I said, I think a part of why I wanted to go so early was to screw up a few times. Like I knew that it wasn't going to be perfect the first few times it came out. It ends up being a lot more conversational than you think. I think when people
good.
tell you about your elevator
Yeah, I'm
pitch,
glad you had that experience.
it sounds very like stocky when you're practicing it and when you're creating it, and then you get into a conversation and honestly you could make it 2 sentences into your elevator pitch and someone stops you and is interested in that part, so you keep expanding on that. It becomes much more conversational than you think. Mine again was pretty dry just because I didn't have that much experience.
Do you remember it by any chance?
Oh gosh, I think it was honestly I knew I wanted to differentiate, and being a freshman was going to be an easy way to do that. I mean, because it's mostly juniors and seniors.
Right.
And so that was the main part of it. Like, I'm Jamie Bell. I'm a freshman here at Grand Valley. I'm studying. I also wanted to make it clear that I knew what I wanted to study already. I'm studying human resources and supply chain at the School of Business, and I'm involved in PALS mentoring. And at the time I was doing Circle K, which is like Key Club for college.
Yep.
So I started with that kind of stuff and just kind of saw where they would take it. I don't struggle. Like I like talking to people, so I don't really struggle that much with, keeping a conversation going. But it was amazing to see. I think recruiters appreciate like a genuineness about your elevator pitch too. Like, don't go on and on about all your accomplishments basically, or all the things you're doing. Have a few things behind it that like could really strike up a conversation and see where it goes from there.
I think you hit on something so key there with being genuine. It goes so far.
Yeah.
Because we talk all the time in the Career Center about people hire people. You're not talking to a robot when you go to the career fair. You're talking to a human being who, isn't it so much better to have a conversation with someone when you can just talk about natural things as opposed to I'm basically going to outline my entire resume for you right now, and you're going to listen, and then you're allowed to talk.
Right.
No, when it becomes that conversation, that's
I think
where
allowing
the
for
good
silence is
starts to
such a
happen.
key part of doing it.
I like that.
Especially when they're different employers handle it differently, but a lot of them will just take your resume and start scanning and looking for things they want to talk about. And honestly, standing behind people in line is a great learning opportunity too, to see like what the recruiter's like. And you could see recruiters that wanted you to go ahead and just talk through your whole resume, but also some that wanted to highlight a few things, see if you hit their criteria, or see if you would be a good fit, and move on. So there's something to be said about not coming on too strong too. Again, like that genuineness of, okay, like you're leading this conversation. I'm just here to kind of talk to you about who I am. So
Yeah.
Great.
Finding comfort in the silence is something people struggle with a lot of times. They feel like it has to be go, 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 but that's not really the case. And so we know you went to another fair, but that first fair, would you call it a success based on what your goals were? Anything you would have changed that first time going around?
Yeah. So I've talked a little bit so my first internship was with HR recruiting actually at Amway.
Yeah.
And so people talk about like career fairs being dead or career fairs like being the old school way to handle things now. And I'm super biased because like that was how I started my entire like career here, I guess, at GVSU. It was one great connection with that recruiter from Amway, and then from there, I was able to, land another internship through that one and then get a return offer to go back to Amway this summer. And so I think the career fair is a good starting point just to get your feet wet when it comes to, again, talking about yourself professionally, learning how to properly prepare for those types of conversations, figuring out how to gauge people and see what they want out of a conversation too. Because some recruiters are there that they're there to hire, and some are there to just start conversations. Some are there to just kind of expose their company. You've got to kind of figure out how you're going to gauge that situation too. So I think honestly my biggest learning from it is it never hurts to go. You never know what's going to come from it. Like looking back and thinking like that's where it started for me. I've been able to have 3 opportunities from that one conversation, and that's priceless. I mean, like in a city like Grand Rapids, like having a connection like that to begin is, again, it's just priceless. You can't, you can't put value on what it took to actually get there. So
it's probably going to make your life a little easier at the end of next year when you're
Yes.
graduating
For
to
sure.
say, wow, I already have some really high quality experiences doing the things I want to do already.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
The hands-on experience is something you can't replace. And I mean, hands-on experience right from my internships, but again, just learning how to actually start networking like that and see how fast your network grows when you get the conversations going the correct way. So
Okay, that's really interesting. Would you say that you did a pretty decent job of following up with some of the recruiters and the people at the various career fairs you've attended?
yeah.
And what did that look like?
I think that's the hardest part, honestly. Like the preparation all makes sense because you want to come in prepared, but then after you're done, you're kind of like, like it's like a sigh of relief and you think you're done with it. But I think what really sticks out to a lot of employers are the people that take the time to follow up. I would say I didn't follow up with absolutely everyone I talked to. I think you should be somewhat selective. Like, don't just follow up to follow up. Again, genuineness. People can tell when you're just sending a stock email versus something that you're actually interested in them. So I definitely followed up with Amway, obviously. I followed up with probably like 5 or 6 employers that I really thought the conversation went well, that I got a good read off of the recruiter. And it took maybe half an hour out of my day, honestly, to just say like, hey, really enjoyed meeting with you at the career fair. I am interested in summer opportunities or school year opportunities. Don't know what your company looks like right now for those openings, but I would love to stay in touch. Thanks, Jamie. It was a simple note, but it went a really far, like it goes far.
Did anyone coach you for these notes? Because they're really good.
That was fantastic.
I do. I have, so again, I have my 2 older sisters that are substantially older than I am. And then my dad's always been in business too. So, I mean, it was a lot of calling and being like, does this sound right? Does this seem okay? And yeah, so I definitely had some good guidance there. But I also did go to the career center in Allendale because I was in Allendale at the time. And had them look at my resume before I went, and then again had them read through my note, like my follow-up note, and was like, is this normal? Is this too pushy? Because I think that's also something you come across as a student, is not wanting to seem overly eager either.
Yep.
And so yeah, no, definitely some coaching there. And then again, as you continue on and like as I went into my internship, I had my mentor, I called her the red pen, because I would write emails and have her come by and she would tear up the first few, but like slowly as the summer went, I got better. And so it's just, again, it's getting over that fear of asking someone to look at it, taking the constructive criticism well, and then actually learning from and implementing those changes. So
Right.
Yeah, and finding a mentor, somebody you can trust throughout this whole process is really important and can make so much difference. But everyone doesn't have that, right? My parents didn't go to college. I had an older sister who went to college, but she's only about a year older than me. So there wasn't, we were kind of in the same boat together. And, and that's where you got to use your resources, right? So if it's not a friend, a family friend, a sibling, come to the Career Center. For sure, that's what we're here for. I've worked with students who find a faculty mentor. I know some folks who maybe they go to the TRIO office. Maybe it's their academic advisor. But it's very helpful to get that, even if it's a quick little 2-minute phone call, just to know, like, yeah, I'm on the right path. I'm going towards the place I want to be. And I could, as I heard you talk, I just kept thinking, she is amazing, but it really feels like there's some guidance here that takes it to the next level. So being good at something doesn't mean you can't get better, right? It just means that you can speed up the process even more, because people are surprised. Megan and I will meet sometimes with seniors who are looking for the advice that you were given as a freshman because you seeked it out earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be lost. We were all there at one point, but I don't think it's okay to do nothing about it, right? Going back earlier when you mentioned that some folks will say the career fair's dead. I've heard that too. And while I will never say that the career fair is the perfect place for everyone, I do think that you should at least check it out, or you should do something about it, right? So some people will use that. I don't want to say it's an excuse, but it's part of their reasoning to take no action at all. And I don't think that's acceptable. You want to have some sort of plan as you navigate education, as you navigate your career. So maybe it's not career fair, but it could be going to an employer panel. It could be going to a different type of smaller career fair where you only have 15 employers that are all focused in your field. So there are a ton of different ways to connect, and you really want to take advantage of a few different ways to see which one works best for you.
Are there other ways that you've connected with employers for networking purposes while you were a student here?
Yeah, 100%. So I attend a lot of TRACS events. TRACS, that I don't know if that's particularly Seedman.
It is Seedman. It's Seedman Professional Development, but there are similar types of programs in other colleges at Grand Valley as well, or at least events where various departments are, putting together an opportunity to interact with employers in that particular field or industry. So, but from the TRACS perspective.
So I attended a few different things as a freshman with TRACS, one of which being a LinkedIn profile workshop. So showing you how to create the perfect LinkedIn profile. That was awesome. That was really, really helpful. And they had a few employers there. I will say there's something to be said about being willing to go up and introduce yourself too. Lots of people are nervous. You're not the only person if you get nervous about those situations, but that's why it sticks out. If you go up and actually say hello and thank you for your time, do you have a card, something like that. I also attended, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was in Allendale, and it was women leaders. They came in and had a panel discussion. So I met the president of Gilda's Club, which is a little nonprofit that I actually volunteer at now through it. It provides free health care or mental care, I guess I should say, for anyone who has cancer affecting their lives. So I met with her and talked with her, and then I also met someone high up in Mel Trotter Ministries downtown, another nonprofit. And so just kind of starting those conversations too, and learning from their experiences, especially particularly that one's women leaders, is really helpful for me, right? But doing those types of things, never say no to an opportunity, I guess. I've heard a lot, this was kind of an Amway thing, but raise your hand. That's the expression they use is if you want an opportunity, or if you want something for the next step, raise your hand for it. And there's plenty of stuff going on around campus that you can absolutely raise your hand for. I think there's resume workshops every other week. I mean, they know that we need that.
We have a lot of that stuff going on, for sure.
It's just kind of showing up and being there. And again, it's going to be what you make of it. If you go and you leave, then that's what it's going to be. It's an event that you got your knowledge from and you left. If you go and you prepare for it and you have questions ready when you go, and then you have follow-up questions and you really make that connection happen, it's going to be much more beneficial, I think, for both sides. So it's again how much work you want to put into building that relationship.
Awesome. I like the piece about the questions.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge part of that research component, right? When you're trying to figure out who these employers are, you want to know who they are, and you can only find out so much online. So I don't know what you would say, Carlos, but a lot of your time should be developing what questions am I even going to ask these people, so that I can, of course, learn more for myself, but also I'm just really then demonstrating my interest in their organization. So what would you say about asking questions and how you prepare?
Yeah, when people ask me about number one advice for internships or the career fair or anything like that, when I have friends even just ask me that kind of stuff, asking questions is my number one thing. I think last summer again, I was terrified walking into that first internship. Like, I was so scared and so nervous. And the best feedback I got all summer was like, you're willing to ask questions and people appreciate that. And I think there's something to be said about acknowledging that you don't know something, but you want to. You have a thirst for wanting to know and wanting to succeed. And so asking questions is a huge part of that. I think people, again, back to genuineness, people appreciate you not pretending like you know it all and not pretending that you have it all under control. So, I mean, even as silly as, like, I remember asking probably, like, 4 or 5 times to 4 or 5 different people, like, what should I be wearing in the office? Like, I don't want that to be something silly that's holding me back from making the best impression I can be. So asking any question, honestly, I mean, be aware that, like, there's probably some sort of resource that might have the answer. So, like, exhaust your resources. And then if you can't find it, go to someone. Like, they appreciate you being honest and upfront about the fact that you want to know and you just need a little shove in the right direction.
Okay. So you attended the career fair first semester. You went back the following semester. Did you see some of the same folks there again, reconnect at all?
For sure.
And by that point, did you have the internship lined up already, or was that still kind of an ongoing thing?
Nope.
Your second visit to the career fair.
Yeah, I would have been lined up. Amway does a really great job of recruiting really early. So that was already all said and done. I just went to, again, like, connect with them again for sure. Obviously, go say hello to the recruiter that I had initially met with. And then also just, again, keep learning about different companies. There's a ton of businesses in Grand Rapids and outside of Grand Rapids that come to the career fair. So it never hurts to just kind of, I mean, I went and I jotted down, like, a few different ones that I'd never heard of, kind of like Amway the first time.
Yeah.
And just went home and, like, looked them up and saw what they were about. So, I mean, everyone knows about, like, big employers around in the area, right? Like, again, a Meyer, an Amway, Steelcase, Hayworth, like, all those big companies, and they're great companies to work for. But it's the tinier ones that, like, maybe kind of slip under the radar for us that don't get talked about as much, but are still really great opportunities in the area. So it was more of a just kind of going to seek out a little more knowledge, I guess, about the different career opportunities here in Grand Rapids.
All right. So following semester, you start your internship. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, how that went for you, what you worked on the first time around?
Yep. So it was a summer internship with Amway, and I was with the talent acquisition team. So it's right up my alley. It was right in HR, which is awesome. Really fortunate to get one in my area of study. So the first project that I worked on, Amway does a really great job of recruiting straight from college and later in the career, but they struggle to kind of stay in touch with people that maybe don't start their career right then and there out of college. So wanting to figure out a way to stay in touch with those individuals. So I developed an email campaign to send out to the current contacts that they already had, just to keep Amway in mind and kind of stay connected to the Grand Rapids, Ada area. And then I also developed a new program that they were running. It's called the Intern Innovation Challenge. It's a challenge that they do a case study for all the interns. We get together. You put them on cross-functional teams, so people from different areas are all on one team. I think it was like five or six people per team. And then they gave you, like, a real business problem that Amway was facing, and it was one day, so you had, I think it was like 5 or 6 hours to work on it, create a presentation, and then at the end of the day, you were reporting out your result to executives, which was a really cool experience. So I got to develop that program for the first year. But honestly, I think it was developing soft skills, like, was my biggest takeaway from that internship. Again, learning how to network better, learning how to talk about what you want and what you don't want. Ask questions and just kind of, I mean, like, silly stuff. Like, I didn't know how to use Outlook to its full potential. Amway does, like, a lot of their meetings and stuff through Outlook, and so figuring those pieces out, it's silly stuff, but I think people also realize that, like, that's a major part of, you know, your day, and it's also something that you would have no exposure to if this is your first time being in a professional setting. So biggest takeaway definitely from that internship was just navigating what it's like to be a young professional and how to advocate for yourself, but also be humble enough to know when to ask for help. So
very good.
Yeah, and you know, oftentimes people don't realize that you're always being watched, right? You're always being watched, be it for good or bad. And one interesting thing about your experience at Amway is that it led to a different opportunity. Can you tell us a bit about that one?
Yeah. So again, relationships are huge for this story, I guess, for my story in general, when I think about it. we partnered with Hello West Michigan, which is a nonprofit downtown that helps bring talent back to the West Michigan region. They offer a lot of intern programming that Amway participates in. And my mentor knew that I had a social media bug, that I really like doing that kind of stuff. And so she connected me with their program manager, who offered to have me help them with social media for a few of those events. And then after I helped them with a few of those events, followed up, told them I really liked, what they did. It's awesome. Told them to keep me in mind if they had any future opportunities for interns, that I didn't know if that's what they did. Again, the follow-up was really crucial to the story. And at the end of the summer, they had an opening for the school year, and liked the work I did with them during the summertime. And so I was able to kind of nab that. I had to do, I think it was 2 interviews for that one too, like to kind of go and just confirm everything. But yeah, so that led to a whole other opportunity, and that was actually in marketing. So new exposure area, totally new experience, going from like a giant corporation like Amway to a nonprofit like that, and really opened a lot more doors for me too as that continued on.
Yeah, so what's also real cool about your experience is that they're different types of companies, but they're both very well-connected companies. They're companies that are well-known in the West Michigan area. And so when you're filling out future applications or for future internships, those stand out, real nicely. You also did a second internship with Amway, correct? And that was this summer that just wrapped up?
Yep.
Right.
I just wrapped that up last Friday, actually. So the way Amway works is if you get an internship there at the end of the summer, you have the opportunity to receive a return internship, or if you're eligible, so like this year I'd be eligible for a full-time role, to get a full-time role offer. And so last summer I expressed interest in wanting something with supply chain, seeing as that's my other major. I wanted an experience in that major, but also at the same company, just to get a more well-rounded view of it. And so I was able to secure a spot with procurement, and that's what I just did this past summer. Really cool experience. Like it was everything I wanted, I guess, to see the other side of the business. I was super people oriented, right, and recruiting oriented with last summer, and then this summer it was much more business driven, money making decisions. So really interesting opportunity. And I've stayed in contact with Hello West Michigan and my HR team. I think that's also important, is to keep the contacts you've already made. Don't forget about them once you wrap up that internship. So I actually just had lunch with Rachel and Cindy, who do Hello West Michigan, my last week there too. So again, just kind of keeping all the connections going and seeing what opportunities come out of all of them.
That's great. And we're actually really lucky because in our November podcast, we will be having Cindy Brown.
Yay!
As our employer guest.
That's awesome.
Who's the executive director of Hello West Michigan.
Yep.
So that's going to be exciting to hear from first the intern perspective there, and then from Cindy. So yeah, we're excited about that. And I'm really glad to hear you had a great experience at that super small organization, Hello West Michigan, but then also at such a massive global company like Amway.
Yeah, and I took learnings from every single internship into the other one, right? Like even though it was just 2 people for Hello West Michigan, like there's still a ton of things that you can learn and develop as a young professional to bring into your current internship. One of the things that I like, Cindy says all the time, and I've always loved this quote of hers, is she talks about how 1 million business cards mean nothing, but one person willing to go to bat for you means everything. And
that's
I think
brilliant. I love that.
It's awesome, and I love sending into sports analogies too. But but I think it's really great just because it's so true. Honestly, I mean, like when I look back at how things have progressed for me throughout my 3 years, it's been people. I mean, it's been very people oriented. It's had nothing to do with basically, having a bunch of business cards in my pocket. Like it's been what people have wanted to take a shot with me and help me develop, and told me when I've done wrong and told me when I've done right. And that continues to just prove true, I think, to have the right kind of people standing behind you that are willing to advocate for you even when you're not around.
Very good. And what would you say, since you've done basically 3 different functional areas now in your internships, especially the one that a little bit of an outlier in terms of your major, at least the marketing one. Do you think that's something you would recommend to other students? Is there value in having, that breadth of experience? Do you feel like you still got the depth even though you tried these different areas? I guess talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So with Amway, I think that the different part about their internship that may be different from other corporations is that it's project-based. So you're handed like 2 or 3 projects each summer, and you are fully diving into every aspect of that project. So again, very like when you talk about breadth, like you're really getting in depth there. But I do recommend trying different things too, because I think like I have a few friends like in HR that have had all HR internships, and that's great, you know, HR like in and out. But I also think it's really helpful, like if you're recruiting, for example, like if I was recruiting for supply chain, I would now have a better understanding of what you want for an individual in supply chain. Marketing as well. I mean, like being able to, so Hello West Michigan's kind of funny because it was marketing, right? But it's a very HR-ish role.
Right,
I mean,
right.
because they're dealing with talent and recruiting
Yep.
a lot. But I was doing like a newsletter, like I was using different formatting things that I never thought I'd be using or have exposure to. And so now I know that like, oh, that's a key part of what you need to be in marketing. You know, you need to have this creativity, or you need to be willing to try this new thing. And so I think it's great. Anytime you can get a new exposure area in some way or another, I think it's an opportunity to take advantage of. And I mean, to say like, I really liked this part, I really hated this part, you know, like it's okay to say, I didn't enjoy this as much as I thought I was going to, back to the drawing board. But you don't know until you really try it hands-on. So
Yeah, that's a very important point. I've worked with students who came in and they say, you know, all their life I wanted it to do this thing. They do their first internship and hate it.
Yeah.
And so they feel bad, but I told them, no, you should be really happy.
Yes.
Imagine if you didn't do that internship and then you committed to a job and maybe you feel stuck, right? You're working somewhere that you're not enjoying, all because you didn't have that experience beforehand. And there's different ways to get that experience, right? So some students might be maybe they're a junior. It's fall semester, so you know, starting in started already. We're recording a couple of weeks before fall semester begins. So fall semesters, you know, we're right in the middle of it. Nothing's stopping you from maybe joining a student organization. Maybe they need help with a treasurer. Maybe they need help with somebody to do some event planning. There are other creative ways to get relevant experience to build up that resume so that when the right internship, when that job comes around, you have more in there that you can talk about. So it's not just in the workplace or internships. You could definitely get creative in different ways.
100%. I think it's something to be said about joining organizations around campus too. I mean, that's a big part of it.
If you're talking about relationship as building as being a key component of what's happened in your career so far, I think a lot of times we don't think about how just the people we get to see every day are also important relationships that, I mean, think about all the people you know here at Grand Valley, from faculty to staff to fellow students who are all going to go off and do amazing things just like you and are now a part of your network. So, I agree that getting involved in those other things makes a lot of sense.
There's something to be said about professors too. I mean, they gave you, or I know that my, I don't know what they're called, but like the students that kind of teach you when you're a freshman, like the ropes basically when you're moving in, they said like, go introduce yourself after class. Like, just see what happens when you go and introduce yourself to a professor after the first class. And I've sat in professors' office hours and just chatted about everything under the sun. I mean, honestly, like, when you start developing those relationships, it's really key to, I've been able to get letters of recommendation from professors that I developed really close relationships with. Those go really far. I mean, people appreciate professionals that are now in the educational field and can write you some sort of like, yep, they're a great student, or yep, they'll work really hard. And I had a friend who school isn't necessarily his favorite thing in the world, but really hard worker. I mean, like, honestly, he'll do anything you ask him to do without asking any questions. And he had a letter of recommendation get him an internship just from that the professor basically admitted, like, wow, not the best when it comes to reading the textbook, but will work hard. Right. And so those things can go really far.
The professor got to know him.
Yeah.
If he had just, walked
if he
out
just
of
looked
class,
at his GPA, it wouldn't have been. Right. Yeah, it wouldn't have been what it was. So I think that, again, having those personal relationships, those people that are willing to see deeper than what you got on that last test, is really, really helpful.
Yeah, relationships are key. I know of employers who, while they won't guarantee you anything, if you come recommended by somebody who they trust, you'll at least get an interview, or in some cases at least get that extra close look at that resume. And that can make all the difference in the world when you're talking about an employer receiving 3, 4, 500 applications, sometimes double, triple that amount, depending where you're interested in applying. Jamie, so you're in your senior year now, and throughout this whole conversation, I get the sense you like to plan ahead. Do you have a rough idea where you'd like to head next, where some of your plans might take you? And if you feel comfortable sharing, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Nope. I am super paranoid about planning ahead. It's my parents' like worst nightmare because I'm talking about 3 years from now and they're on vacation. So, no, I definitely am interested at seeing what kind of opportunities can arise at Amway. I've really enjoyed both of my internships there. I really like them as a company. I highly recommend them for anyone that's looking for an internship. I love Grand Rapids. Like I said, I came from a rural small town, so it was kind of like my Dorothy moment of like, I'm not in Kansas anymore when I got here.
Yeah.
So I'd love to stay in Grand Rapids. I've been talking to a few different employers. I'll be going to the career fair in the fall to make more connections. Yeah.
Yes, October 11. We're almost there.
Almost there. It sneaks up. So yeah, I think it's just honestly continuing to kind of network and use the people, Cindy and Rachel, that I've developed really great relationships with, and the companies I know they're close with, to maybe just kind of get to know those employers a little bit better. And again, definitely people at Amway that have outreach further than just Amway, and so kind of utilizing them too. But from here, it's just kind of figuring out what I want for a full-time role and leveraging my experiences and interviews and moving forward that way. So I'd love to stay in Grand Rapids. I'm not opposed to moving out, but I think Grand Valley kind of sucker babied me into the area. Yeah. So I really like it.
You now. That's good. Yeah,
exactly.
Grand Rapids is great. That happens to a lot of people. Believe it or not, a lot of students come from outside the area and end up staying. Same thing with staff. So Jamie, I don't want to take any more of your time up. Thank you so much for joining us today. For all the listeners, please remember that if you feel stuck or you have some of the same concerns that Jamie did before going to the career fair, talking to her mentors, feel free to come into our office. We can do anything from a general conversation on how to network, how to plan your elevator speech, all the way to more in-depth things like job and internship search strategies, mock interviews, resume, cover letter review, and just general conversations. If you like sports, come talk to me also. We should be in the thick of football season, so I like college football more than professional. But yeah, we could talk about that too. Thank you so much, and tune in next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.